Look at that, we're here. It was dark there for a while. Yeah, I'm Jim Check, with me Ian Burns, with Now Media. We're here with Friday, November 14th news commentary. We're going to give it to you straight, we're going to give it to you a lot, and you're going to learn a lot here, that's for sure. That's one of the things that we can promise. We'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button. Lots happened yesterday, and we got lots in the news load this morning. But we're going to kick it off, though, with some of the headlines that you're going to expect today. No oil pipeline in latest Carney's project list. And EB says no way through BC. Who's demanding carbon-free LNG and oil anyway? Liberals released some project hostages while claiming they are new. Poilievre was in Kelowna. We covered that. The PBO office turmoil. Conscription coming to Canada? So you just arrived in time. Bombshell dropped on DRIPA. Trump gets an apology, wants cash. And that's up to 65 years old, conscription. Wasn't that beautiful? Why not, right? Why not? All that and a lot more on the Really Big Show. We got lots of international stuff too, right? Trump gets an apology. Now he wants cash money. But we're going to kick it off, though. Mark Carney was in Terrace, BC, and he kicked off another 7 projects, or released some hostages from the project's hostage room, I guess. So let's listen to what Mark Carney has to say.
We're building sustainably, in each case reducing emissions and investing in a clean energy future. Our energy and critical minerals projects are amongst the lowest carbon in the world. And moreover, they unlock major investments in sustainable growth for generations to come. Secondly, we're building in solidarity with Canadian workers, creating hundreds of thousands of high-paying union jobs. And we are always building in partnership with Indigenous peoples to ensure meaningful Indigenous ownership and major economic benefits, while promoting the conservation of our natural heritage for future generations. This approach reinforces that the impacts of our nation-building strategies, just like those that came before us, that these impacts will be generational. Consider my earlier reference to that railway in the Maritimes. It was built around the time of Confederation to move goods and troops there, to assert Canada's independence and help unite a young country. But that line eventually became part of Canadian National Railway, which now spans more than 31,000 kilometers across this vast land, reaching here to Terrace and from Terrace to the world. That line moves $250 billion of cargo each year and employs nearly 25,000 Canadians. Its infrastructure is old as our nation itself, and it drives this huge economic activity across the country, employing tens of thousands of Canadians and uniting our nation. That's the power of nation-building projects. Projects that Canadians have built before, and projects that we are starting together to build again. Building Terrace strong, building BC strong, building Canada strong.
For a guy that says he doesn't like slogans, he sure got a pile of them. But CBC doing some work for him here. Look at CBC's little ad that they ran here. Mark Carney wasted no time in checking this out there. Gotta love it.
That looks like an AI image, doesn't it? That looks like a Grok image.
Is he doing an Elon Musk there, or what's going on? Those 7 projects.
Who knows?
A little bit of humor this morning. Those 7 projects, though, the North Coast transmission line. There's already some objection to it. So that's one of the projects. That LNG one that David Eby keeps promoting, there's a lot of opposition to that one already, and says it'll never happen.
Yeah, 2 nations already upset about it.
We got to remember that these things are just put forward by, Mark Carney clarified that, just put forward. These are not go, these are put forward into the projects office. And then the Canada's Nickel Crawford project, that's in Timmins, Ontario. Doug Ford happy with that one, but not as happy as he could be, I guess, because that's not what he was asking for. And then there's a graphite mine there in Quebec. That open pit graphite mine will provide inputs. And then the Northcliffe Resource Assistant Mine that the Liberals talked about way back in 2017 that just got released, I guess, from being held hostage for that long. And then and this is a smaller one, the Equalit hydro project there in Nunavut.
And that's because they've been using diesel and they want none of it. They want better, more reliable power, don't they? I found it, I was reading an article about that. It was quite interesting, very interesting framing where it was said the Inuit are sick of this diesel power and they never asked for it in the first place. That's quite a peculiar way to frame it. It's like, I didn't ask for income tax, I didn't ask for a lot of things. Is that how the federal government operates? If you didn't ask for it, then they're going to change it for you. Quite interesting.
What was, I guess, a lot of the reaction is, and our reaction is, there's a lot of buildup and hype to this, and just a lot of disappointment, I guess. And these are not nation-building projects. These are a lot of projects that were on the go. Some of them sitting like the Sissons Mine since 2017. They were bragging about it then in 2017, and these are just like, there's a lot of like negativity out there. But the big one is, and this is the one that I think a lot of people expected, the pipeline, the oil pipeline. And this is from Stephanie Kuzi here, an MP, saying that no pipeline. And Danielle Smith has that Grey Cup, that's this Sunday, deadline on this MOU. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on Sunday with this. But there's a lot of talk on the carbon capture. We're going to see some more of that stuff here. But, this pipeline is what is it? Our second largest or our first largest export to the world? Oil. Mostly to the Americans.
It's our number one export. Yeah.
Number one export, and no alternative really other than the United States of America, who have held our feet to the fire recently. And that's why we're in this kind of, what do they call it? The worst thing since World War II, as far as economic uncertainty goes in Canada.
It depends what time of day you catch them. Sometimes they talk about the fall of the Berlin Wall. Other times it's 1945 and the end of the Second World War. But that's an indication. I know that might sound like quite a trivial thing to even discuss, but that's an indication of how uncertain they are, how messy this really is. They don't even know their own messaging. They say something different each day.
So if you're a student of geography, and if you look at a map, Alberta is closest to the West Coast pipeline, and also that's where the alternative customers really are, is on the West Coast, Southeast Asia. And here's what David Eby says about an oil pipeline.
It is no surprise to me that there is no heavy oil pipeline on this list, because there is no route, there is no proponent, there is no project. It is a figment of a communication person's mind in Alberta, and it has no connection to real investment in our country or in our province. If it goes ahead, it will only be because it is fully funded by taxpayers to the tune of $40 to $50 billion. And we already have a publicly owned pipeline that is not operating at capacity and could take on significant additional capacity. I remain frustrated that this appears to be an ongoing issue for Premier Smith. We've got so many things to work on together that could make a meaningful difference for her province and ours, whether it's around electricity rates in Alberta, whether it's around access to Tidewater for key products, whether it's around just working closely together as each other's major trading partners in Canada. So the door remains open, but let's be honest with ourselves, that pipeline is not happening, and that's why it's not on the list.
Canada's number one export, Alberta's number one export. What else would they want to ship to the Tidewater?
Yeah, beef, frozen beef, maybe, or wheat, something like that. That would satisfy. Although even that wouldn't satisfy EB, would it? That would be unpleasant to him, I'm sure. But did you hear what he said, though? I mean, well, you did, because you highlighted it, where he was like, we need to work together, other things that you want to ship to Tidewater. Again, just asserting his control of the Pacific coast of Canada, basically. That's his. isn't it? It's in his eyes, as far as he's concerned, Canada's Pacific coast is his Pacific coast. It's his. He decides what comes through. He is the lord of the pass and the lord of the coast. It's just such a, if there is such a thing as a Canadian nationalist out there anywhere, hiding in the bushes somewhere, it's enough to send them into despair, isn't it, to see this? Because you just have all of these little tin pot earls and lords and dukes in this country that think that they just own vast swathes of the land, and they decide what happens. And it's like, in the case of EB, it's like there's not even a bribe. There's not a toll you can pay. There's just nothing. It's just like, you shall not pass. And it's quite dispiriting, isn't it? And I think probably one of the most dispiriting things is that the federal government is supposed to be the umpire, isn't it? It's supposed to be Zeus, in Olympus, supposed to settle the squabbles of the minor gods. Where's the federal government on this? I've heard Tim Hodgson, at one point, Tim Hodgson said, Alberta's doing it right. Alberta's doing it the right way. Like, we're happy with Alberta. That was like about a month ago. That's all I've heard. Where is the support? But, instead we have these petty sort of nobles having a little squabble, and the big king is nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, not much of a Team Canada approach. We're seeing most of the provinces at each other's throats, and this is a make it or break it moment for Danielle Smith. It's getting access to Tidewater. And there's a big bombshell coming in this show on David Eby. It's in when we get to the BC section. You're not going to miss it. I interviewed a lawyer yesterday, Jeff Moyse, fourth time, and he dropped a bombshell that is something you're going to want to stick around for sure in our BC section. But it is pretty wild what he said. So we got a little bit more from David Eby, and this is the kind of talk that he keeps talking about. Let's listen to what he has to say here.
Hey there, Andrew Johnson with CTV National News. Prime Minister, where do negotiations stand with Alberta on the so-called grand bargain? Premier Danielle Smith was hoping to achieve a deal by the Grey Cup on new energy projects. Is that going to happen?
We call it a memorandum of understanding, as does the Premier. Those discussions are going well. I'm personally encouraged by the progress that we're making. There's a few more issues that we're working on ironing out, and looking forward to that progress over the course of the coming weeks. This is a very important process for the province, for the country. It's related in many respects to what we're talking about today in terms of some aspects of this are for major investments that will help build Alberta strong, build Canada strong, make us more independent and more prosperous. We want to make sure we're doing it right. I will reference one thing, if I could just bring it back, and then I'll hand it back to you for your follow-up. In terms of, because we're here talking about the Major Projects Office and these big projects, one of the first bits of work that the Major Projects Office is very much engaged in is around the Pathways project and major carbon capture and storage. This is a huge opportunity for Canada to develop a new industry, to have decarbonized oil and gas, and it is part of, very much part of these discussions that we're having with Alberta. How do we move that forward, part and parcel with other aspects?
I'd advise people to go watch our segment yesterday when we talked about Marco Rubio. We cut that up as a separate segment in our international segment, where there's somebody that speaks clearly and very well defined in what he says. Mark Carney could have just answered yes or no on that question, and he goes into this long thing and splits it in half, cuts back, rolls over, and then comes down to what you and I have highlighted. I think we're the only ones highlighting it so far, and it's all about carbon capture. That's what's in the budget. That's the Trojan horse, carbon capture. Tim Hodgson highlighted it when that company moved here to Canada for carbon capture credits, and I believe it's just under 75% of that. It's going to be 60% from the feds, a little bit of top up from the Albertans, and they're going to get 75% tax credits for carbon capture, and then have the ability to tax private companies and tax energy. What a beautiful thing. And if you look at Brookfield Renewables, go look at that stock chart there. and go look at what they're into, and you go search Brookfield, search carbon capture. They've invested billions and billions and billions of dollars in carbon capture. And the next question is, and this is the big question, Americans signed deals with Japan, South Korea, and Germany. Who's asking for a decarbonized oil and gas? Who's asking for a decarbonized LNG? Mark Carney talks about that it's going to be lead in competition. Who's asking for it? Who is asking for it? Because how did the Americans do deals? And according to Mark Carney, that people want to buy this decarbonized oil and gas. There's nothing different with the oil and gas. It's the same oil, just that apparently there's some skimming going off the top here in Canada where we suck carbon out of the air and then inject it into the ground, and we say that this is clean oil. It's the same oil. It's not different oil than the Americans
In fact,
are selling.
it's actually slightly lower quality oil, isn't it, if we're going to be honest?
Yeah,
Because it's the heavy
just,
crude.
It's such a ridiculous scheme, and it's just another way for taxation. You know what does a better job than carbon capture? And they know it. It's trees. Trees do a better job. That's why they've given up on trees. They say trees are worthless. That's why they've given up the whole tree program, because they've got something better. And we've done this story. It's you go Carbon Capture USA. Go to that website. Go see what they do. Go see the monstrosity that they have there, and then go look up Brookfield and go see what they're doing there. And this is the kind of, I think this is the extortion or whatever you want to call it that's being held over Danielle Smith. You want to pump oil? You're going to have to pay the tax man. And this time you're going to pay directly to private corporations that have invested billions and billions into carbon capture.
But it's right. It's a right question to ask. Like, who is this for? And it feels like Mark Carney and all his gigantic genius that he's with the liberal sort of big boys. They've sat around the table and they've thought, right, people aren't interested in this anymore. Not like they were. It's not the good old days where Greta Thunberg could come and lecture adults about their climate policy and things like that, or their environmental policy. Those days are gone. So we need another way to sell this. And Carney, the pragmatist, self-described, has decided that it's this. It's to say, look, people aren't going to buy oil that hasn't been decarbonized or whatever, that hasn't been treated in some way to make it clean.
There for a second, though. Nothing is done to the oil. Okay, now go ahead.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Except it. I mean, it's so lame, isn't it? But it's like you use hydro, so you use clean power, or maybe even wind turbines, to fuel this carbon capture apparatus, which sucks the carbon out and puts it into the ground. Supposedly, anyway. But we've discussed, or we've looked at it, haven't we? Where they need trucks and things like that. So there'll be a certain amount of diesel going into that, obviously. But whatever. But he's sold it, hasn't he? He's trying to sell it to the rationalists in Canada. He's trying to say, look, this is how we do business. We will outcompete our rivals, because people are going to want to buy our delicious, clean oil, which has got we've done all this carbon capture stuff to it. But as you point out rightly, where's the market for this? I mean, the great hope would have been the European Union, but the European Union does have this like carbon border system that they're implementing. I think they're going to do it next year, but they're going to fully implement it next year. But they have exemptions for energy because they were nearly choked to death by Russia in this war, that the Russia-Ukraine war. So they've been burnt and they're scared, the Europeans. So they've exempted energy. So what's the point exactly? Like, who is this for? Because the other sort of set of people that it's for, you could say, the environmental left, like left-wing environmental activists like Stephen Guilbeault, they're still loud and in charge. You know, they're still making a lot of noise. And he still has to appease them. So I don't know. Is it more for them? Does Carney really believe what he's saying? That this is actually pragmatic and this will actually, in the long run, will benefit Canada? It's hard to say, frankly. But I point people back again to the Bloomberg interview where he said that he's still the same man that he was when he wrote Values, which is a left environmental activist book in many ways. So maybe we should just believe him when he says that.
Can you pull this link up? I just put it underneath the video there. Can you pull that link up on Stockwatch there? I just want to show you something. Let's see if we can get that link up. So that's Brookfield Renewables, and that's where if you go on their website, you can read their investor report and all that stuff, and then they'll talk about carbon capture there. And then you can see that the stock was drifting lower and lower as the world was starting to move away from all this climate stuff, and the stock's drifting lower. But what happened around the end of 2024 that would kind of revive carbon capture? Interesting. Interesting. All of a sudden, there's a renewal in this carbon capture. And you remember somebody's speech at the UN where it said we're going to transfer money from weak hands, and the finance, because remember all the banks were into this net zero stuff, and they're all moving out, and they're all gone now, right? Including the largest investment banks. They've all left net zero, and the Americans have left it. India's not into it. China's not into it, and Canada is going to lead. Carney's right. Canada is going to lead in carbon capture because we're the only ones that are going to do it. These American companies that have lost all their climate credits, and they've said go to Carbon Capture's website, go to Carbon Capture USA. And it'll tell you right on that website, we've left the United States because there's no credits available, and this technology is not viable without credits. So where did they come? They came to Canada, and they're going to get 75 cents on the dollar, your money. They're going to take it. And I think even Carney is doing some fancy work and calling this an asset, footwork, calling this an asset when it's clearly tax dollars going to these companies to fund their operations, and then get the ability to tax our energy and concrete too. Not even just energy, it's concrete producers, all kinds of stuff. Anybody that's using power and energy is going to pay this carbon tax. It's like the sheriff of Nottingham has figured out a new way to tax companies.
Yeah. And King John there is sat in Ottawa, letting it all happen. But I would say, look, I mean, a lot of people, it's almost becoming now, there's like a cordon sanitaire being erected around Carney and the Liberals, I find, by the sort of mainstream establishment type people. And they're trying to prevent this sort of chat about Brookfield. They're almost trying to make people feel like they're conspiracy theorists or they're nutbags, aren't they? By saying like, oh, he's going on about Brookfield again, kind of thing. I just find that so ironic because a lot of those people will be in like their 40s and 50s, and they'll have been around probably doing the same job that they're doing in a more junior role when George Bush was president, George W. Bush in the US. And I'm sure you can remember, because I certainly can, all that talk about Halliburton and the oligarchy and how it was all really this secret. It was like a corporate conquest of the White House. That's what the Bush presidency represented. And that was being put forward by all of the eminently serious magazines and news outlets in the US. And I would presume Canada too. But for some reason, and this is the same for almost every other issue related to Carney and the Liberals, when it's of him, particularly Carney, but also the Liberal Party in general, apparently you just switch that off. That skepticism or cynicism or whatever it is, you just turn that off. And no longer will you say, oh yeah, Brookfield just happens to be like a top 5 Canadian company, has enormous amounts of assets. Maybe it would have an interest in gaining a lot of influence in Canada. And if it could, so to speak, capture the political apparatus of Canada, it would probably want to do that, wouldn't it? But that's just not allowed. It's not permitted. You're not supposed to turn that, the sort of skepticism that you might apply to the US, like somebody like Trump or George Bush, you are not permitted to apply that to the Liberal Party and Mark Carney. And I find that very intriguing. I think that tells you a lot about the establishment, about the people who hold power in this country.
You don't even have to put on a tinfoil hat or get a lot of string out. You can just go to Brookfield's website, hit the investor thing, go to the investor, because they advertise it, right? Because they're promoting it. Hit the investor presentation, and you're going to find carbon capture. And then you just do a search on Google or ChatGPT, and you just do carbon capture, Brookfield. And then you just listen to all the stuff that Tim Hodgson and Mark Carney are espousing, who leads in carbon capture, and then just go listen to some of the speeches. And like I said, you don't need to put on a tinfoil hat. But why isn't anybody else talking about it? We actually invited Dan Mazier. He was coming in yesterday to do an interview, and we were going to ask him about this because nobody's talking about this carbon capture and this new climate grift. And they must have watched our interview or our presentation of Poilievre's speech where we were a little critical of Pierre Poilievre, and they canceled it. So they never showed up for the interview. So,
and if that is true, if that is actually true, and that therefore means that there are conservative operatives that watch this and sort of invigilate our views, I would say if you're that fragile as a political party, you will never be in power. You'll never be in power. You are doomed to sit on the outskirts of power and look on and whine pointlessly.
Threats to democracy are people that won't be held accountable. Again, the people that scream that Trump is a threat to democracy, he takes interviews, he takes questions from the media. It's in Canada where they try to really control the voice of media. We got another clip here, though, from Mark Carney.
We have the last question. Sure. Just sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Kind of got it from Dogwood News. Following up on this question. So, as it stands, Western LNG is the owner of the Xi Lisims terminal, and it would be built in Korea with Korean and Chinese steel. So, how much taxpayer money are we prepared to invest in a project that is American-owned and foreign-built?
There are different aspects of the project, as I said. There is the PRGT pipeline, which is necessary, which is Canadian-owned First Nation. Sorry, can I finish? There is the associated transmission line that comes there. There are structures that come with projects that ensure that there's returns to taxpayers through the tax system as well. And the structure of the financing is a decision that we take with the full information of the project design. So that's part of, we answer that question with full information by doing the work, and that's what the referral to the Major Project Office facilitates.
Again, what? What?
The best bit of that was, oh, please let me finish. As if he's saying something important.
Yeah, don't interrupt me till I just really go through this word salad. I looked up the book of Kamala Harris word salads, and I'm right there. Again, Mr. Carney, Prime Minister, and the rest of them, just go watch Marco Rubio for a second and just answer the question. Yes, this is again another project that the Canadian taxpayer is going to fund, not owned by Canada. Bang up job. Bang up job.
And that applies to a few of them as well.
Bang up job.
The nickel mine, I believe, in Ontario is in a similar sort of situation. But
Why
I don't know. I mean, there's a New Zealand
fair.
company is one of the major holders. I think that's that nickel one, isn't it? Yeah. And then there's also the Koreans.
Why not
Very
answer the BC Ferries question still? It hasn't been asked. Here you are in BC. Somebody asked the question.
Well, it's very relevant as well because that same bank, the Canadian Development Bank,
Infrastructure Bank,
is given like $170 million loan or something like that. It's like 100 and something anyway, like a fraction of what they're given to BC Ferries, so that BC Ferries can right away go on the computer and say, okay, deposit to Chinese Communist Party. It's the same, it's the same system, and yet only a tiny fraction is allowed for this project. It's very relevant. It's a shame that it's never discussed. It's never been put to Mark Carney.
Well, there is one person that wants this carbon grift to go, and let's listen to him just in case we forgot who he was.
I see a tremendous effort in terms of rallying now behind net zero, not only governments, but business. We have a number of initiatives at the World Economic Forum. For example, we work sector by sector how to decarbonize those industries. So there is an awareness now, it's generally accepted that climate change, if we do not tackle with it, could be the next big, let's say, virus with much more damaging and long-term consequences compared to COVID-19.
Climate change is a virus.
I could listen to him literally all day. But I mean, I would probably rather watch Goldfinger. I'd rather watch the original. But he's a very good, he's
villain?
Such a good Bond villain, isn't he? He's like, there will be net zero, Mr. Bond.
But hey, Canada.
Why is he the main guy? Who thought that was a good idea? Like, he should not do his own PR.
They try to make it so obvious that it's just painful. But Canada and its PR department are in at COP30 there in Brazil. And we got a little report here because they're doling out the money. Let's hear it.
Yes, the Environment Minister announced $392 million to an international effort to help some small farmers, for example, cope and adapt to climate change. This is part of a larger global fund that Canada has already committed to help developing countries deal with and cope with climate change. Here's part of what she had to say.
Climate action and economic prosperity go hand in hand. Through innovation, global cooperation, and ambitious leadership, Canada is helping to shape a clean, resilient, and prosperous future. A future that leaves no one behind.
That's good. That's enough pain. Someone should tell the Americans, because they're messing up. They've signed 3 deals worth trillions of dollars on LNG with no carbon capture on it. And someone should tell them that they don't know how to do it. Because we've signed one small deal with Malaysia, and then they didn't even ask for this carbon stuff. So, like, I don't know how, who's confused here? Another 390 million plus?
What I'm very interested about is it now fixed in the Canadian system that the Environment Minister has to be a left-wing environmental activist? Like, it was Stephen Guilbeault before, now it's her. They almost seem to act against Canada's interests. That's what I find so strange
You mean
about
because Canada's biggest asset is energy, and they act against it, you think?
Well, yeah.
And who's there?
The government has as part of its coalition people that want to kind of destroy the Canadian economy, at least as it presently exists.
But a better question, why is the Heritage Minister at the climate event? Why is the Heritage Minister there?
Because he obviously represents quite a lot, doesn't he? He represents people that the Liberal top brass are afraid of. He has power and strength, doesn't he? And doesn't matter what department he's in.
I thought maybe he was making sure CBC got treated very well down there, and they was doling out the cash at the buffet tables and that, because it seems odd that Stephen Guilbeault, the Heritage Minister, is off at COP30 on the taxpayer dole, and then now doling out. Like I said, you go to these events, and it's almost like a religious event, and they make these speeches. And Stephen Guilbeault made a speech. I didn't put it in. He made a speech to a room of maybe like a few people. So he went all the way there on the taxpayer dollar, and he drew a crowd of what, less than 20 or something? He's such an important figure.
But I guess there's a lot of conspiring that can be done between the likes of Stephen Guilbeault and sort of like-minded left environmental activists. That, you know, they're very, very good at coordination and working together, and all the groups are there, all of the crackpot, you know, like the fringes of the charities and things like environmental defense. They'll all be there, and they can all sit in a quiet room somewhere. That's just for sure that Stephen Guilbeault giving a pointless speech. The real sort of meat and potatoes will be in the back rooms where they can talk to each other, get FaceTime with each other, and come up with a plan, because they need a plan. They're in a very dire position right now. The environmental left is weaker than it's been in many years now, so they need a sort of comeback plan, and I'm sure that's what's happening there.
Well, they lost one of their main religious leaders when Bill Gates said, "Let's not worry about it anymore. We got other things to worry about." So that was a big loss for this thing. And even Greta Thunberg has moved on to other things. She's definitely more worried about Palestine than she is about the climate. No, she's figured out a new way to fundraise. She's in just another fundraiser as well. If you look at them, they're basically fundraisers, right? They're basically out there raising funds. Here's a little, here's a note on it saying that Canada's projects announcements are a national embarrassment and economic hostage release program. Yeah. How many of these projects were actually sitting there being kiboshed by the Liberals? If we look at, maybe they're going to revive the Frontier project that Tech spent over $1 billion on and then had to walk away because of the Liberal regulations and then the uncertainty around the environmental stuff that kept coming down. How many projects, the Keystone Pipeline, how many projects were kiboshed? And if we look at that, here's Dan Albus also pointing out that in 2017, Dominic LeBlanc than it was really just like talking about how great this project was back in 2017. Right?
God, that is absolutely sickening, isn't it? But it just goes to show how strong that lobby is that we're talking about, the environmental lobby and the sort of Quebec lobby.
I was in the mining industry. I was a mine site controller, and it is like basically just like everything is like getting a tooth extracted to do anything, and without anesthesia, by the way. Do you know what I mean? Like, it is bloody painful.
Bill C5, like you quoted somebody there who talked about this being an economic hostage release program. I think that is a very colourful and mostly accurate way to portray it, actually, because as time's gone by, C5, because there was a lot of hype, wasn't there, and excitement. A lot of people thought that Mark Carney, because he got rid of the consumer carbon tax, they thought he was going to dismantle the whole system of strange sort of obstacles that have been put in the way of the Canadian people and Canadian business. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. Instead, he's done this Bill C5 thing, which is it is like a hostage release program, because it sort of gives him permission to sort of go out into the Canadian economy and choose winners and therefore also losers. Because when he chooses the winners, the others lose. If you're not chosen, you're going to lose. And he comes over and he sort of gives you like grace or something. It's like a laying on of hands, if we're going to keep the religious metaphor going. And he just releases you from all of the rules that kill every other company. It's like, you are the chosen one. You can go ahead and actually do something. So it does become like central planning. This person says that as well. It's David Knight-Legg. I don't know who he is, but he obviously
he's an
he and I are of the same mind, I think, on a lot of things. It is like central planning, but it's done in this weird sort of legislative magic trick, isn't it? It is like a trick where all these laws remain in place, but we have the magic law that we can come in and we put the card on the table, and then all the other cards are defunct, and then you can build your project. That is just another way, and a very sort of convoluted way of doing central planning, meaning like almost like a communist state or a socialist state, where projects or any sort of commercial enterprise of significance is given the go-ahead and the green light by the person in the center, the prime minister, the president, or whatever.
Sound familiar to Bill C-18? Cripple the industry, cripple it with Bill C-18, cripple the media industry, and then selectively decide who gets funding, and then just fill the trough for the CBC. Fill the trough, you choose who you want. And that's what they've done this with many industries. And you could say that way, you could just pick an industry whenever the Liberals have put their hand in there. And you probably couldn't find an oil or mining guy that say that their industry hasn't been crippled. Now they're at the begging bowl of the government for handouts or favor.
But it's, in terms of platforms, it really does make the election look, it already looked very consequential, but it makes it look all the more consequential, doesn't it? Like Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney, they really did have very, very different visions, because Pierre Poilievre was all about unshackling and freedom and, opening up the markets. Whereas Carney and the Liberals, they really want that control, don't they? They want a real sort of like iron grip on what happens. And they just happen to have done it in this really quite strange way, where we have all these laws blocking things, and then you just have the magic law that unblocks them when the prime minister decides that you deserve the magic law.
Isn't that amazing how they're just like, well, we have the solution for you. All you have to do is bend a knee and just do as I say, get in line with the carbon capture, and we'll bless your project. And somebody just wrote that BBC just got nailed. Yeah, hey, we do have a good piece on that. ABC, BBC, CBC. That's how you do that. Wasn't that a Michael Jackson song? But anyway.
But yeah, I would just say, you really have to ask the question. I'm being very serious here. I'm not being flippant or exaggerating or anything. You have to ask the question, what is the nature of the Canadian economic and political system now under this new legal regime? Because I don't think it's like a free market, open economy anymore. You have to give it a different description. It's almost like it's in like two camps at once, isn't it? But it's certainly pushing Canada and its economy and political system much more towards central planning, as that person tweeted.
And if you want central planning, then you have to make the economy and the transactions that very opaque. Have we done that? We'll get to
Hell
that
yeah.
in a bit here. We'll get to that in a bit here. But here's the chart here for you, just to take a look at this. This is the reality of the Liberal policies over the past 10 years. There you go.
Yeah.
Is that Canada way at the bottom? I mean, they use different numbers. Francois Philippe Champagne will stand there and like Kermit and espouse some nonsensical fact, and then like stand there and Canadians got to get smarter. They got to like pull this chart up and say, what about this one? What about this one? What about this one?
But I firmly believe that there's at least a plurality of Canadians out there, Canadian voters at least, who think that Mark Carney is going to fix all this, that he's going to cut the Gordian knot and he's going to make them all richer and better off. But I feel like they just think that, they just have faith in him. I don't think it's necessarily based on a kind of objective assessment of his policies so far.
Surely can't
But
be
that's
what
the
he
thing.
says.
It almost has a cult-like quality to it, in the same way, same thing you observe with Trump. This level of faith that people have in Mark Carney, and it really is faith, is really unusual in the Canadian scene, isn't it? Can you think of anyone else that attracted that kind of faith, belief? It's like he has this aura around him.
And it isn't in plain speak because, I mean, you and I are both fairly educated, and we can't understand what he's saying. So maybe that's
kind of the point, though, isn't it? That would strengthen my point, which is he doesn't want details to go out there. He just wants to continue this kind of vibe and this reputation that he has with a large chunk of the Canadian population, that he's just like a super smart dude and he'll fix it. Like, don't worry about things like details. If that was if you'd realized that as a political operator, you would advise Mark Carney, say, whatever you do, just don't say anything. And people will continue to have that prejudice about you, that you're some kind of superhero that can fix everything.
One of the more annoying things that recently, whenever he talks about oil, he seems to laugh. Like, remember he got interviewed by that lady there, he said oil is boring. Even when the CTV asked that question, he laughed first. Like, it's like, I don't think Canadians see the comedy in it when they can't even afford to buy meat to put on their table. I don't know where this is here from Chief Billy Moore, and 2 major project announcements from the PM, who's supposed to be from YEG Edmonton, and 0 projects thus far for Alberta. Calls our industry boring, floating pathways with next to no call backs on inquiry from Indigenous nations from the major projects office. Some people are starting to figure it out. This Pathways project is what? You know what it is? Carbon capture, yeah. Right? Couldn't get any funding for it because this stuff is dead. But who's going to bring it back? By force, by literal force, it's going to come back by saying the only way you're going to sell oil and gas is if you play the carbon capture taxation climate grift scheme.
And for no obvious reason either. It's yet to be proven, to me at least, as far as I'm concerned, at least just speaking for myself, it's yet to be proven that it opens doors to trade around the world. You see that. And then it's objectively true that it will have no effect whatsoever on global emissions. It just won't. It'll be trivial.
I've got an idea. You and I should try to pitch it. We're going to take these fans, we're going to suck air through these fans, and inside the filters of these fans, we're going to capture some carbon, and then we're going to take it and squish it out and put it into the back of a tanker truck, and then we're going to truck it hundreds of miles, and we're going to drill a deep hole into the earth, and then we're going to inject it down there, and then we're going to sell that, say it's 1 ounce of it, we'll pick a number, to Suncor, and then who's going to know what's down there? How can you tell what's down there? How many times can you sell that same credit? Does it stay down there? Is there fissures in the earth? How do you make sure it stays down there? Why is it injected deep into the earth? Wow, there's a lot of holes in that. And then you're going to come along and say, well, trees do this much better. Trees do it. They actually process the carbon and they release oxygen. Who needs oxygen though? I don't know.
Losers. Just losers.
Nobody would buy into this scheme, but apparently Canada's going to buy into this scheme by force.
Somebody asks here, old Digsy here asks, how much energy will it require to liquefy the CO2? That's are you talking about the process of carbon capture? Or are you talking about liquefying it for some other reason? But in the process of capturing carbon, that's the genius of it, as far as they're concerned, because they can use clean energy to do that, can't they? But another thing, this is not really talked about quite so much, but British Columbia have said that they're going to basically put a cap on how much energy can go to like data centers and some other very important, modern sort of tools in our economy. They've said they're going to limit that, but things like carbon capture, they will get, I'm sure, the priority, because there is a limited amount of energy. That's kind of the central conundrum of life on this planet, isn't it? So you're going to have to divert energy away from very useful things like data centers to some extent to carbon capture, and that's another element of it.
But you're forgetting one thing: all the costs of these companies. Like, they're going to get most of that back, whether that is in the fans that they have to make, the carbon capture, the trucking, the injection, all that stuff. It's going to be basically free, because 75% of that is going to be a tax credit. It's called, what did Carney call them? Super credits or something like that? So basically, they're going to get funded for free, basically. Your tax dollars are going to fund this venture, and then they're going to have the ability to tax our energy. Isn't that great? I think we should all create our own carbon capture companies and get in line. How do you get in line to be selling carbon capture? Because I have probably in my backyard 20 or 30 carbon capture units that do this better. They're called trees. When can I start selling carbon credits to people?
Good old, very old and dear friend Lightning Rod asks if we've viewed any of the experts at the current COP. I mean, I would throw one back at you. I'd throw a lightning bolt back at you. Have you read the latest IPCC reports? Are you familiar with that? Because if you had read it, I think you would have a pretty dim view of COP. That's what most of the like real serious dogs in the climate world and in chemistry and all the rest of it and atmospheric science, they look at this as just exactly what it is, just political theater. It's like a political pantomime for stupid narcissists like Lula in Brazil. That's what it's for them. It's for those idiots. It's not the real science. It's not the real how we actually going to fix this problem. It's for the posers and the crooks like Lula.
Pierre Poilievre was in town yesterday, and you and I, we had one of our videographers go there, and we live streamed the event, and then you and I commented on it after the fact. And one of the things that we highlighted in there, you can go on our YouTube channel, you can watch it, and our reaction to it. We were fairly critical of Pierre Poilievre because it seemed like the same tired old lines. I think he's got to kind of revive what he's saying. And then one of the key questions I was asked, and I think this is the key part of the whole event, if you go watch it and watch this, he lost the election. He lost it because of the boomers. He lost it because of guys like Lightning Rod. He lost that because he's not resonating with them. And they asked, how are you going to appeal to these people? And he didn't answer it very strongly. Like, he needs to answer that with conviction, compassion, and make it a compelling argument, because he didn't do that. He can do the 3 C's if he wants some kind of compelling, compassionate, and convincing, but he needs to work on that. That's the message that needs to happen. He's got the young people. He's got the hardworking families. He's got the unions. He's got all those people already. He needs to convince the boomers that they need to move away from doublespeak and nonsense. But he needs to make it. He needs to make that message strong for those boomers that can't hear. I mean, they watch CBC and they eat it like pablum, and because we're talking about a lot of big issues here today, and I can guarantee you. We go to the CBC News website, and I'm just going to do it now because we do it every time we're on here, and see what CBC is covering. They got something on baby pablum. They do have something on grocery prices soar as inflation declines.
I mean, that is quite a good story. Credit to them for that. Credit where it's due.
Yep, and he did.
That story about baby formula it's a big deal. That.
There you go.
I mean, for one, I don't know if they've got a temp in today or something, but the top is good. That's good. Actually, top story's good. Next story's good. talking about the PBO.
Yeah, so I mean, it's surprising they actually have something.
Fixing.
I haven't read it, but yeah.
I want to know. I want to know who's doing page editing today. Who's the page editor?
It looks different.
It looks a lot. This is not my CBC. It's not the CBC I know.
Anyway, maybe they're scared of what's going on in the BBC there. We're going to get to that in a bit here. But listen,
maybe they're scared of us.
Maybe. Let's look at this, though. We're going to talk about the PBO, though. Jason Jacques. The Treasury Board is concealing the scope of federal job cuts from analysts at the Budget Office. Records show refusal to disclose follows Treasury Board President, man, I can't do these names, Shafqat Ali's promise to MPs to strengthen openness. Imagine that. There's none of that. The Budget Officer on November 5th asked federal managers for a breakdown of the planned savings by program with information on planned personnel reductions and details of potential service level impacts. Releasing information before informing impacted employees could generate anxiety and uncertainty. So again, the government is undertaking a comprehensive expenditure review to ensure government spending is responsible and delivers results. I mean, just typical yada, 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 right?
But what it is, in summary, is another example of this particular party, the Liberal Party, concealing information from taxpayers and citizens that doesn't belong to them, doesn't belong to the Liberal Party. It belongs to us in this demos, in this polity. It's ours, just like it's our money. And they're hiding it away, something that they do repeatedly, consistently, to the point where maybe we should do what the mayor of Chicago has done and invite international observers to come in and lecture the Liberal Party on how to administer a transparent government.
Well, remember that was what Justin Trudeau stumped on, and him and the Liberals stumped on transparency and accountability. And then he went to none of it, and we got none of it. And it continues on. Like, we were even asked the information on what Mark Carney and the Liberals were spending on Meta, and they gave it to us at first. We made a story out of it, and they didn't like that story. The next thing you know, we tried to get an update on that information. They said, well, we can have none of it, and we can have it maybe in January of 2026.
Likewise, BC NDP, notorious for it, despite promising to be open and transparent. We don't know about the Conservatives, this version of the Conservatives, because obviously they don't have any power. But based on how they treat journalists now, when they're not in power, I suspect that they would also be quite opaque. And the question it becomes like, what can we do? What can we actually do about it? Seems to be a universal attitude among the political class that they just want to be secretive and hide things.
Yeah.
Things that, I must say, that don't belong to them and in fact belong to us. They want to hide our own stuff from us. It's extraordinarily dastardly.
And here, this is from Franco Terrazino. That's the Canadian taxpayer, I believe. And even the PBO is saying, even the stuff that, where they're trying to do this capital and operating budget, but they've moved a lot more into the capital budget than belongs in there, according to the PBO as well. Imagine that, eh? Imagine that. And then this PBO is, they're not big fans if they're looking for somebody that has more tact. I guess, what's another word for tact? Will be less?
Obedient.
Less opaque, or more opaque, they would like, more opaque. Less transparent. Like the words he used there for Mark Carney's budgeting, shocking, stupefying, unsustainable, and that we're standing at the edge of a cliff, and we don't want to see what's on the other side of that. Not good. And then there was a lot of talk about the Liberal MP that spent $174,000 in personal expenses in just 9 days of work. And Melissa Lansman there, the MP, put out that joke, because remember the big hoopla the CBC had over Stephen Harper's glass of orange juice? Remember that? I think it was a $7 or $8 glass of orange juice, and they wouldn't let that orange juice go. Meanwhile, Justin Trudeau went off to the King's celebration and spent, $6,000 a night in a hotel room. Major bar bills. I think it was like $250,000 or something for his little junket there.
There was that video of him at the piano. I don't think he was playing the piano. I think he was sitting on the piano or something. But yeah.
And then
that wasn't very tactful.
I can get in on this. It's only $174,000. And I think there was another piece that went there. I guess Liberal MP, she wouldn't say, they questioned her, Ariel Kabanga, they would not say whether paid employees worked on her political campaign while on public payroll. The former government House leader, I mean, she was a House leader for a very short period of time, 6-figure billing for personnel over 9 days. And she said, reflected vacation pay for staff. What? What? Literally, what? What?
It just becomes it becomes a question of like how, not just what, but how. How could you? I literally don't know how it's possible to spend that much money in that short period on just nothing.
But then you finish it off with, like, we want to make sure we're a team and are focused serving Canadians. That includes parties across the House. It's what Canadians want. Isn't that what always Canadians want? Is what they spend $174,000 in 9 days. We want to be unified. Team Canada is not just the Liberal Party; it's every single party in the House of Commons, and to have a democracy that is secure. That's what Kabanga said, and she said that it feels great to have a secure democracy. And
it's becoming the same again and again and again. It's like the people that use that language are usually like the sketchiest people, and also the ones least conducive to a healthy democracy.
Mad yet? No, there's more.
I'm on serious tranquilizers myself, so I'm not mad. I'm just loving life.
Canada Revenue Agency counted 450 possible fraud cases involving staff who falsely claim pandemic relief benefits while on payroll. And that's the figure detailed in the Labour Board case contradicted claims at the time by the Revenue Commissioner Bob Hamilton, who assured MPs there were not very many. Well, turns out there's 450. A preliminary analysis showed there may have been more than 450 possible fraud cases that need to be investigated. The figure was detailed at a hearing involving an $85,000 a year tax auditor suspended for claiming COVID benefits. Why not? I mean, if you look at what the MP there, she took $174,000 for 9 days of work. Everybody's just like, hey, there's a slop trough there. CBC's got its face deep into the trough, $1.55 billion. When they got their raise, what's the first thing the CBC executives did? Do you remember? What did they do?
Partied hard and gave themselves some cash.
Slop the executives with a raise. Why not, right? Why not? Why not? A total of...
well, they're the ones that lobbied for it and earned it, I suppose.
Yeah, so that's another story from Holly Rowan's Blacklocks. That won't be on CBC's website today. But, we talked about the General Hand Grenade there, the top soldier, has second thoughts about recruiting public servants. I wonder why. She said there was public backlash. Who do you think the backlash came from? You want to take a guess? Who was upset about the enlisting the public service? You can go on to the next slide there. But now, following significant pushback, nope, next one, from the public after citizens revealed the plan, she says now that she's having second thoughts. It shouldn't be focused directly to public servants, because our public servants, are ready for this, are already contributing extensively to the work we're doing in defense.
I just love how her job title was Minister of Democratic Institutions. I can't get over that.
But, seeing how the public backlash, remember the Coast Guard? They said they were going to put the Coast Guard in there too. This is how they're trying to meet these NATO numbers. They're going to put the Coast Guard in. And what the Coast Guard unions say? Not a chance. We don't want no guns. We have no guns. They don't even board ships. But what they are studying right now is Finland has a conscription-based military. Every male Finnish citizen aged 18 to 60 is liable for military service, and women can apply for military service on a volunteer basis. So, yeah, and after Finnish citizens complete their compulsory full-time military service, they're transferred to the reserves. In May, the Finnish government proposed an initiative that would raise the age limit to 65, and Canada is studying that. Why not? This is what you signed up for? That's what you voted for. But the public servants, they got kicked. They got rid of that pretty quick, though, right? Just what was it, a couple days ago they announced it, and all of a sudden public backlash. I would say the public backlash came from the public employees. public, I guess.
They're already contributing extensively to the work we do in defense. What a stupid thing to say that is. What an utterly foolish thing to say. Dear God.
$136,000 on average for their salaries. These aren't serious people. Again, match her to the counterpart in the United States. Match Anita Anand to Marco Rubio.
But she's about who you'd expect to be in charge of a military operation like Canada's, you know? She's basically perfect. But that would be the thing. If we really are going to change, and this country really is going to sort of remilitarize, we're going to also need somebody sensible in charge.
And if anybody
got to
was
look
watching,
serious, got to look like you're trying.
we covered this. Was it a week ago where she was crying? 2 weeks ago? I can't remember. 2 weeks ago, she was crying, apologizing that Canada's military is a racist organization. Isn't she in charge of it? Why hasn't she resigned?
Guess that makes her the chief racist.
Why hasn't she resigned?
Another reason to get rid of her.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's just like a clown show. Like you come out with a policy. You come out with a policy yesterday and say, we're going to enlist the public service employees. Phone lights up. Okay, that was a bad idea. They're already doing so much work. Who believes that?
Not just work, but work related to defense, apparently.
I would think that, what is that Open Skies one? Is that the defense there?
Yeah, defense against extraterrestrials.
Not finding aliens, but just making sure aliens aren't stigmatized. Trying to figure out the word to use for them. Like, you can't even make this stuff up. And Lightning Rod, we're not even kidding around. Like, it's the truth. You can go back and read it if you want. Anyway, here's, when Trump was in Japan there, and he said he came home and he said Toyota committed to $10 billion in the United States. And the CTV in them were saying, that's not true. Turns out, it's true. Oops. Oopsie. Anyway,
Oops, indeed.
Our auto sector it sounds like they're going to hang on to this EV mandate here in Canada. I know a lot of people have said, I've seen it in the comments, why don't we just start our own EV sector or automobile sector? One, because it's hard. Two, because there would be no capital investment for it. Three, because it's hard. Four, because it's hard. Five, because it's hard. You know what I mean? Like a really famous guy, the only one that's actually been able to start a successful automobile company in the past, 50 years. Only one in the world, Elon Musk with Tesla. And what does he say? Concept cars, easy. Production cars, hard. And then Evan Solomon was at that university there, and what did they spend, $5 million already? I can't remember the exact number. $5 million on one concept car. And they need another, this is from memory, another $20 million to build the next 5 cars over the next few years. This is an automobile sector that Canada wants to get into? No. And we're going to start our own space program. By the way, Blue Origin landed a rocket just like Elon Musk did. It landed on a barge. Pretty impressive. Elon Musk even reached out and said, congratulations, Mr. Bezos. So there you go. So, and Canada's going to start that? I don't know.
Well, a question to ask might be, why is it America? Why is it happening in America? Could it possibly be something to do with the fact that they have a relatively free economic and political system compared to ours? Well, maybe that has something to do with it.
I wonder how Elon Musk would have done if he was operating in Canada. What he would have been able to accomplish.
He would probably be the CEO of Shopify, wouldn't he?
Maybe, or working at Netscape still.
Or maybe in jail for saying something he shouldn't have said about someone.
Former immigration minister says Canada's reputation is on the line. There you go. Welcoming refugees at risk. There you go. What do you think?
I just, yeah. I mean, what my question would be a cheap one, I suppose, and an obvious one. What reputation? What reputation are you talking about? Are you aware just how low Canada's reputation is now in the world? I mean, what reputation are you trying to salvage here?
And that's Lloyd Axworthy, right? That says that the new border bill, C-12, will cause Canada to regress into a kind of a bubble. And it disturbs him that Canada's backtracking on promises made under the UN. I don't think we owe anything to the UN. Like, I think the UN has made a mess for Canada, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit here when we get to the BC section about DRIPA and UNDRIP. The media losing its mind, though, because outlets like ourselves and, you know, like these other guys and a lot of guys out there just on Twitter and X that are getting more views than CBC and CTV combined. Influencers now have more reach on 5 major platforms than the news media. Well, you begged the media, some of the media outlets begged for handouts and begged to get shut out of Facebook, the biggest platform out there for news. You begged the government to freeze it out, didn't they? So
well, they begged the government to start a fight with them, and then they lost that fight. And that's probably a fair way to put it.
Who's on Facebook and Meta still? Not us.
Stephen Guilbeault.
Stephen Guilbeault, but
Carney spent about $6 million recently, in the last few months.
But all these influencers are on Meta and Instagram and Facebook. We're not. They took our audience away. So these people fill the void. Like Canada Proud takes content from us and other outlets, and he's built this huge platform because there's a void there that media outlets, some of them, like the big newspapers, asked for. And this is where we're at. And now they're wondering why. And plus they've lost trust. I mean, how many people actually watch CBC? We're going to talk about CBC, ABC, and BBC in a bit here, but. And then we're at our section here for photo ops. And you know, like always competing for a photo op. Here you go. I love the portrait in the background. Do you see that portrait in the background?
Yeah. And what's that giant vase? Is that his urn?
Who's the narcissist now? Who is it? Come on, who is it?
But talk about photo ops. What I'd like to do here is Photoshop and see if I could do the magic thing around Melanie Joly and put her inside of Doug Ford and see how much space is left over when she's right in the middle. It looks like you could eat her.
You're just being mean now. There you go.
I'm not necessarily. That's not necessarily a comment at Ford. That might be a comment at Mel.
There you go.
Who knows? Who knows who I'm taking the piss out of?
But I just say that Doug Ford there, love the painting in the background. I love the medals on the background. You know what I mean? Like he's got all the.
That's the mayor. That's the mayor's chain, isn't it?
The lordly tax collector garb, right?
They're pulling the similar face as well, aren't they? Dougie and Bobby.
It's like
rest in peace. May he rest in peace.
They had a Big Mac meal, and they need to get to the washroom quick. Anyway, let's get on to our
good laugh though. I mean, both of them are kind of, well, obviously the late Rob and the presently with us Doug they're both quite amusing. I will say that. Yeah, and I've read about his like ancestry, Doug Ford's. I don't know if it was a reputable source, but I think it was. And he was like, his great grandfather or something like that was sent over from England because he was like a convict or something like that. He was like a naughty boy, and he was sent to Canada just to get rid of him, get him out of England. The English like to do that. Obviously, usually they send them to Australia and places like that, but apparently that's the origin of the Ford family.
There you go.
Tells you a lot, or maybe it tells you nothing. I don't know.
Let's do the BC News. There's some good stuff in here. Good stuff.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Eleanor Sturko, we're going to ask her for another interview. We've interviewed her in the past. The NDP's legislative changes require courts to interpret Land and Title Act through UNDRIP. And she says, I don't believe government received the informed consent of British Columbia to fundamentally change the governance of this province. And yesterday, I interviewed Jeff Moyse. I think it's the 4th interview with Jeff Moyse. And you got to go watch this interview. And that's what he says, that British Columbians need to demand that British Columbia and Canada stop following DRIPA and UNDRIP and all that. And because it's not part of Canada's constitution. It's a UN thing that, that the NDP and the Liberals have adopted. But one of the things that right at the end of the interview, you got to go watch this interview. It's one of the most revealing. He dropped a literal bombshell in there, and said that David Eby, that most of this is being orchestrated right out of the Premier's office, like right, and everything's under the cover of darkness. Russ Dad and many other, including Eleanor Sturko, are asking for all these things to pause, all these negotiations to pause until they can sort this out. But David Eby continues on, and all under the cover of darkness. And these ongoing discussions are being held. And Jeff said that one of his colleagues that has also 30 years in Aboriginal law went into an MLA's office and basically said, "What the hell is going on?" And then as they conversed a bit, she said, "Are you a lawyer?" And he says, "Yeah, I have 30 plus years experience in Aboriginal law, settling treaties." And she said, "Well, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to debate you. Here's the party line." And he thinks that most of the MLAs don't even know what's going on, and that all of this is being orchestrated right out of David Eby's office with a few select advisors. And he said some of these select advisors, and get ready for it, want British Columbians to feel extreme pain with reconciliation.
It's quite a big claim to make, isn't it?
Pretty wild. Yeah, you got to go watch it. It's yeah.
Well, he knows his onions. If you like your experts, that's he's about as experty as they come, isn't he?
He's negotiated many treaties while he represented 6 different British Columbian governments over the years. He's just retired from the government a couple of years ago, and now he's working on his own. He's trying to educate the public as to what's going on here. It helps explain it. There's good comments as we were doing the show. He's very knowledgeable, and asked him, well, yeah, you got to go watch it. I mean, I suggest it. It's well worth your time if you're, and this is not just, BC feels most of this, but it's BC, and then I always get these two wrong. I think it's New Brunswick, BC, a lot of Quebec that are really subjected to a lot of this stuff here. So, and it's, he's also said that a lot of the UNDRIP and DRIPA stuff has emboldened First Nations not to settle with treaty, that they want what comes with UNDRIP and DRIPA.
And that's not like that just came out of nowhere. That's what one of the main objections to that was in the first place. That's why it took many, many years for that to end up being adopted as it was. People weren't, people were attacked for opposing it as if they were prejudiced or some bollocks like that. But there were very rational reasons to reject it. But obviously, the BC government decided to, or the BC NDP decided to jump right in.
His biggest thing is why is it being done under the cover of darkness? Why isn't this being done openly where people can have input? And he says likely because British Columbians would lose their minds if it was out in the open. Go watch
but will there ever be a new government? And will the BC NDP ever be defeated? Doesn't really look like that at the moment, does it? But
as Jonathan Kay said, the NDP where they sit really well is that the Conservatives are a bit in chaos there. We have a fractured party. We have a leader that won't let go, and you have a bunch of fractures. So, the NDP can basically do whatever it wants and do as bad a job as it wants. I mean, look at the health crisis. We look at crisis after crisis after crisis. And one of the things that we need in BC is investment. And with all the uncertainty hanging around BC and with David Eby blocking Alberta, where is the certainty for Canada? We don't know. But Nikki Sharma there, the BC Attorney General, is disturbed by social media. She slams X in intimate images case. She says she's deeply disturbed after X said it intends to challenge an order to remove non-consensual intimate images from an internet The social media company said it will be challenging orders from the BC Civil Resolution Tribunal to remove an image that violates BC's Intimate Images Protection Act. I don't know much more about it than that. So
it's a great excuse for the NDP to have a go at X, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When, most of the bad stuff that's gone on in social media over the last 10, 15 years has happened on Facebook, hasn't it? And yet, not too much to say about that.
And you got to love this, right? British Columbia's rights watchdog has criticized the province for stigmatizing people who use drugs, calling it a violation of their human rights to treat their health issues as moral failings. And that's Cassie.
Aren't we so glad that we have that woman there, a rights watchdog, Cerberus there, barking, frightening people that dare challenge your rights.
And see, it's working out. It's working out in BC. They just look on the streets, and I'm sure those people, that's the first thing they're worried about is being stigmatized when they can't even, they can't stand up straight. They're freezing. Yeah.
What she said, the province should refocus on expanding safe supply and harm reduction programs. What? Who asked you? Shut up, man. These people, just these like glorified HR people. HR manager. Just like, shut up, man.
The experiment has failed. Even David Eby admits it's failed. And that's one thing he admits, it's failed. Yet they're continuing it to January, which makes not a lot of sense, right? And then this is the Conservative Party asking David Eby to release all legal advice surrounding the Cowichan Tribes versus Canada case. Kind of got mixed up, right? But yeah, it's under the cover of darkness. Go watch that interview. I advise you to go watch that interview. It's well worth your time. Well worth your time. Kelowna has the 10th highest living wage in BC at $25.95.
I'm surprised it's number 10. Thought it would be a bit higher than that. But the island and low mainland, that's where it'll all be, I guess.
And also, Kelowna is getting some of the highest unemployment.
Mm-hmm. Nearly double figures.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. There's a really high tolerance for really crazy high unemployment, I find, in Canada in general, almost, I think. It's way high. If you look at the other sort of Western countries, other G7 countries, Canada's unemployment is like weirdly high in comparison.
We're almost double the American unemployment rate. Almost double.
And the British as well. The British are freaking out because I think it's starting to approach 5. And the British are like pulling their hair out.
10% is like an economic disaster anywhere, right? Do you know what I mean? Those are depression level territories. But hey, we're banging on the door in some areas. Like some areas have 10. Like some are, like our youth is in the 20s. Like, I mean, and yet, where's the media asking those questions? That's why they don't give access to the media. That's why Mark Carney and the Liberals control access. Even yesterday, that event, we asked for an interview with Pierre Poilievre. He comes to town every now and then. We're an independent media outlet here in Canada, qualified under the Canadian, whatever goofy standards they have. And no. And then we're told we can come to the event, take photos. It didn't even say video, but we just went there and live streamed it anyway. We're told we can come for photos, no questions allowed. So we live streamed the event, and then all of a sudden, Jeff Stibbard, a local mining guy, executive there with JDS Mining, has a handful of questions that he sits down and has a fireside chat. It was more of almost like a campaign event than it was like a news type thing. Although the Chamber of Commerce the Chamber of Commerce was supposed to put it on, and there's some weirds going on there because they canceled the last minute. Then the executive director for the Chamber quickly went into, or whatever, they went into like a extended sick leave or something. Like something's going on there. And then, yeah. Anyway, we're gonna have to get going here. International media, we're in our last section because Ian says he's losing juice.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
The BBC says they apologized They apologized for Donald Trump's edit. I mean, it was a big edit. I mean, that would be called election interference. I mean, a lot of the defenders of the BBC are saying, "Oh, they made a big deal. It was just a thing." And then there's actually a lady that came out and said, "You want to see the people of Britain get together? They're going to defend the BBC." And then obviously the comments underneath it is like, "No, the BBC has been lying to us for how long?" And BBC, CBC, ABC, I mean, their audience keeps shrinking. And what they did there was clearly wrong. But Trump says thanks to the apology, but I want the money now. And I mean, Donald Trump, typical troll, he actually created a video. You have to go watch. We won't play it here because it'll get censored probably. But he created a rap video and just says, "I want the money." This guy is got to be the biggest troll ever. Anyway.
Well, he's had so many successes in America, hasn't he? And I guess he wants to keep riding the wave. He's made huge amounts of money from was it ABC? I think he got one from the New York Times as well.
Quite a few of them. Meta too. Meta coughed up money too, and so did Google. YouTube. Google paid some money as well, and. There's a reporter out there saying that the British people are going to ride to the defense of the BBC. I don't see it. You see it?
There's a left liberal love-in for the BBC because the BBC is a left liberal media outlet, and not just everything, all its programs, radio, everything. It's left liberal. So naturally, there is a left liberal constituency in the country that will try and defend it. But I think people have just become bored and disgusted with the BBC. There's also the situation of the TV license. So if you own a TV, or even if you stream certain things on your laptop or computer or whatever, including I believe ITV, which is supposed to be a commercial channel. If you do that, you're supposed to have a TV license, which the last time, I can't remember what it is now, it's about £150 or something, £150, so a couple of $100 or so. You're supposed to pay that every year. And if you don't, they come and inspect, they come and check you, see if you're watching TV and stuff like that. And ultimately, you could be imprisoned. There are, when I was a journalist in England going to court, doing court days where you would just sit in the magistrate's court, often you would see people coming in and it was just on the list, lots and lots of people just there for TV license violations. It's kind of crazy. I mean, I don't know if Trump and Americans and Canadians, for that matter, know quite how mad it actually is in Britain with the BBC.
Why don't we get that choice here where we can decide if we want to fund the CBC or not? Because I can guarantee that they would have to take some cuts in pay because there wouldn't be a lot of Canadians other than the extreme left that eat the pablum that would be bucking up to pay CBC to continue to push out their propaganda for the Liberal Party.
And that's what people say as well about the BBC. It's they wouldn't get the money, they wouldn't get the income if they try to be a commercial enterprise because there just isn't the appetite for that sort of thing. So instead, they force the British people to pay for it. And somebody's asking, why is there a license for TV? That's why. It's to fund the BBC. The TV license is just to fund the BBC.
Here's something else. Trump just dropped a political earthquake revealing George Soros and Reid Hoffman funding Antifa and other left-wing violence targeting ICE and federal buildings. So they're going after these people with RICO. So George Soros may have to go back to Hungary. I don't know if they'll take him there. Hey?
That's that's strange. But he's very famous. He made a huge fortune by shorting the British pound.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't know is that the British are the people. But Britain is the country that gave him refuge when he escaped the Nazis. When he left Central Europe, where he was as a kid, he came to Britain and he went to university in Britain, paid for by His Majesty's taxpayer, and then went off to America and decided to pay Britain back for all of its kindness and generosity by shorting the pound and inflicting gigantic financial losses on the British people.
If he was
nice one, Georgie boy.
If he was a superhero, the Hungarian would be called Captain Chaos. There you go, Captain Chaos. Here's Bob Ray taking a swipe at America. Let's listen into what Bob Ray has to say.
But in embracing change, we need to understand that part of the fundamental problem that we face is one that has been created by member states themselves in failing to pay their dues to support the United Nations. In Canada, we have a concept that we call deadbeat dads. What are deadbeat dads? Deadbeat dads are dads that don't pay support payments to their spouses and children. And we have to spend a lot of time as governments in Canada tracking people down and saying, do you know how much money you owe to your family? Do you know how badly off your family is because you're not paying your dues? You're not paying what the court has ordered you to pay? When we all signed up for the Charter, we signed up to pay our dues. We signed up not only to say these are nice words, but to say we will be there in order to pay for the work of the United Nations and in order to pay to what are called...
That's good. That's good enough. Well, anyway, he calls out Trump and says he's not paying their dues because they're a deadbeat dad. And what is Canada then? Sugar daddy? Are we paying everybody's dues? What's going on here? Because we didn't sign up for that either, Bob.
Well, we've said it before, and we'll say it again. The United Nations exists because of America. America's paid for it all along over the decades, gave it its headquarters in New York City, gave it the sort of prestige and power associated with the United States after the Second World War.
And
it's just ingratitude, if anything, really.
And if Bob wants to scold America on it, and if Trump and them decide that, yeah, we're not interested in you anymore and walk out, guess how many people walk out with it? Probably a lot. Probably a lot, Bob. So, like, again, another sanctimonious virtue signaling. He's the UN ambassador. Sanctimonious speech from, you know, I'm sure it was listened to by, the room was probably packed, almost like when Mark Carney was speaking. They're just packed. And when Anita Anand was speaking, it was just packed with people listening, hanging on to every breath there. And remember, what did we talk about yesterday? How much money did Justin Trudeau spend with the United Nations trying to get a post there? So like almost $20 billion, like being sugar daddy there for, you know, and what did we get out of it? Canadians that can't afford to buy meat. Canadians that are $200 away from meeting their monthly obligations, 67% of them. I've done so many stories and interviewed different trustees in that, insolvency trustees. Canada in rough shape, no matter what our friend Francois-Philippe Champagne tries to tell you. They can't see past their own, like $174,000 in expenses for one MP for 9 days. Can you do that? Can you bill that? I don't know.
Maybe if I was Minister of Democratic Institutions, I could do that, yeah.
And then this is pressure. Top Ukrainian ministers submit their resignations as country rocked by scandal. And that's because of pressure from NATO allies. They're saying, like, you need to clean up this corruption because we're not going to keep sending you money if everybody just lines their pockets. Wasn't his own wife there in New York City buying $1 million tennis bracelets recently? Doing Vogue covers with fake photo shoots and all that stuff?
She is rather glamorous, isn't she? Maybe not a good look when you're, you know, when you're the wife of the president of a country at war that's suffering.
We're getting down to our last couple stories, but here's one that's interesting. Listen to this. German chancellor wants Ukrainian men to go back to Ukraine because they're running out of meat for the war. Here, they want them, if you're of age. Off you go. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Und ich will, damit das Bild vollständig ist, auch hinzufügen, ich habe heute in einem längeren Telefonat den ukrainischen Präsidenten gebeten, dafür zu sorgen, dass insbesondere die jungen Männer aus der Ukraine nicht in großer Zahl, in größer werdender Zahl wieder nach Deutschland kommen, sondern dass sie den Dienst in ihrem Land versehen. Da werden sie gebraucht und in Deutschland werden die Transferleistungen für diese Flüchtlinge so ausfallen, dass die Arbeitsanreize größer sind als der Anreiz, im Transfersystem zu bleiben. Also wir sehen auch hier konkrete Änderungen vor.
Does that also apply to the Syrians, all the Syrians and Iraqis and Afghans that live in Germany? Or is it just the Ukrainians?
Hey, off you go. Here's your death sentence. Here you go. Bye-bye now.
Raus.
But it always sounds better in German, doesn't it? And
Klaus Schwab should be saying it, shouldn't he? You will go back to Ukraine.
I have Dennis Storchuk in here later today, Friends of Kiev. And I also had a young man in here recently, 17-year-old, that the Canadian government won't give him PR status. I wonder if it's related. They won't give him PR status because they said he couldn't speak English. Although I interviewed him very well and he answered all my questions, I thought he spoke English well enough. He was working here and everything. But
he could probably do a better job at Tim Hortons than the average fluent English speaker that serves you there.
Or if you phone a government office and try to talk to somebody.
Yeah. Indeed.
Comedy. We're getting down to the comedy stuff. Protesters block COP30. They cut down some forest for that too. Flew all those jets there. Stephen Guilbeault, our heritage minister, went there to make sure that CBC was getting all the money it needs. You know, making sure that they were comfortable in their rooms, I guess. Handing out that money, how much that money did we give? 400 million? Nah.
What does it matter?
We got lots. And then we're in the comedy, but here's some tech. Here's some good news. Elon Musk, and it, you know, I say all these climate people, like I drive an EV and I have solar on my roof and I believe in, you know, looking after our environment. I don't believe in climate grifting. I believe in looking after our environment and being a good steward. And if all these climate nut bars, climate religious, they won't even, I asked them, have you watched Elon Musk's master plan? No. He's the devil, or he's a Nazi, he's whatever he is. They won't listen. This guy actually has the solution. He has the solution. And here, just a small clip of when he talks about the sun. Here, listen to what he has to say. Oh, it's the wrong link? I guess we're not gonna, I'll just tell you what it is. That the sun is about 98.9% of the mass of the solar system. But it just, all the energy in the sun is there, and and he's actually working on creating a solar array that will float around in space and beam the energy back to Earth. Maybe he can beam it to some of the northern parts there. We can get a northern passageway there, and Daniel Smith won't have to beg EB for access to tidewater.
I'm sure there would be furious reaction against that, wouldn't there?
Maybe if every Canadian begged Elon Musk to save us from our own self-harm, maybe he would feel pity for us and help us out. I don't know. China.
I don't know, he doesn't seem that bothered, does he, about Canada? But maybe one day.
China, unreported gold purchase could be 10 times its official figures as it diversifies away from the USD. That's been going on for a while. I mean, Canada sold all its gold reserves. I think the last of it went in 2016 or something like that. Mark Carney was there for part of it. And why? I think it was around $1,200 an ounce at the time, USD. Said that it was an antiquated asset. And even Tiff Macklin was recently asked in committee, why doesn't Canada, the only G7 nation, not to have any gold reserves? And Tiff said, it's not interest bearing. No, but it's also very stable. And it's actually holds wealth. It's a store of wealth.
Yeah, beats inflation. I mean, it's better than Canadian bonds, you might say. Or maybe that's unpatriotic. I don't know.
Most central banks in the world hold gold. Most hold gold. Americans, the UK. Well, Canada's the only G7 nation. And a lot of banks were kind of like selling their gold up until around 2015 and that. And then all of a sudden, you know, like some of the geopolitical situations, and definitely ramped up as soon as the Ukraine war started, people started buying gold reserves, right? And we've seen them when the currencies collapse, Venezuela, we've seen, you know, like Greece go through its debt crisis and that. And the nations that had gold stabilized their dollar. Even the Russians, when they said that they were going to destabilize the ruble, remember that was the big brag by Biden, we're going to destroy the currency. Within days, the ruble will be destroyed. Turns out the ruble did better. Because what did they have to back the ruble? A couple of things. They had gold. And the second thing, they said, if you want to buy our energy, you got to buy it in rubles. And guess who had to buy rubles? The same people that said they were going to destroy the currency. Weird, eh? It's like a comedy show. Is Ian still there? Or is he frozen? Looks like he's frozen. Well, that's it. That's where we're done anyway. We're down to our last story. And Ian's frozen. He must be out in the north there. He must have traveled up north. But that's our show. If you'd like and subscribe, we have lots going on today, though. We have quite a few interviews. We have Mario Canseco with a poll on who would be the best replacement for John Rustad. Interesting. And then we also have Renee Merrifield at 11:30. We're going to talk politics with Beyond the Ballot. And we also have Dennis Storchuk, Friends of Kiev, in here, and that's later today. Dennis will be in at, I think it's quite late actually, 5:30 or something like that. Oh no, that's something else. There you go. That's our show for today. That's our show for this Friday. We're back on Monday with the Really Big Show at 9 a.m. Thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.